All right, so today we have one task to complete. It'll take, a little bit of time. And then it's your time to work on the homework. But until then, the homework should be away. So whether you need to put it under your graph paper or under a binder, whatever you need to do to get that temptation out of the way. But then, again, and I will wait, what should we all have? Graph paper. Ruler is up to you. I think it will make your life a whole lot easier. Ruler is up to you. Graph paper is required. Anyone want to read? Because you're probably tired of hearing my voice. Kale, you want to read? No. You're going to read about Latanya and George.
Oh, yay.
All right, let's all listen to Kale, please.
Latanya and George are saving up money because they both want to buy new bicycles. Latanya opened a savings account with $50. He just got a job and is determined to save an additional $30 a week. George started a savings account with $75. He usually saves $25 a week. The task: use at least 2 different ways to find the time and weeks when Latanya and George will have the same amount of money in their savings account. Be prepared to use the methods with the class.
So we're definitely going to do that one way today. We might save the other way for next week. I need you to be using pencil today. There is too much potential for erasing. So I need you to get a pencil from the back unless you have one. So we are going to start working on our graph paper to graph out Latanya and George. But because I'm not going to leave my screen up here the whole time, we should probably write down the pertinent information onto our graph paper about Latanya and George. So if I'm highlighting info about Latanya, Ruth, tell me one thing I should probably highlight and maybe write down.
I don't know. I just got here. Let me read it first.
Fine, I'll come back to you. Emery?
She's starting with $50.
She is starting with $50. Kyle, what else? About Latanya. Now she is, right? She is determined to. She's saying, I'm doing this. Actually, you can set up your paychecks to immediately put a certain amount of money in a certain place. So then George, Eden, tell me something to highlight for George. He starts with 75. And Caleb? And he's saving 25 a week. So I don't know if we talked about function notation in here yesterday, but function notation is just a fancy way of writing y equals. So function notation, some of us might just be careful if you're working ahead right now because we're going to talk about what our graph needs and that's going to help us set up our graph. So if we're just writing down the important information right now, we know what Latanya started with. We know what she's gaining per week. So we, instead of saying y equals and just doing 2y equals, because we have Latanya and George, you have nothing written down. All you're doing is playing right now. It's really awkward that I have to call you out about this, but that's kind of waiting for you to do anything. So if you somehow haven't written anything down yet, this is where we're putting it all together. So I could write this Rx plus B. Don't write that down. Or I could write that B plus Rx because it doesn't matter when I add two things what order. The B, our y-intercept, that's where we start, quote unquote. So if we want to write down what she starts with and then how she's changing, what's Latanya start with? 50. How is she changing? My time 30. Ooh, we could say W, or since we're going to graph this using X and Y, we can say X. You're right, X is weeks. But when we're, especially if we went to type this into Desmos or anything like that. Correct, it would not take W. So then George, next thing I would do if I was you, is write down George's info. I'm not going to do it for you. But then the question is, do we need any of the negative quadrants? No. So you really only need to be using quadrant 1 And then the biggest thing is going to be like, how do we set up our axes? And how do we determine a scale? Because do you think we're going to use a 1-to-1 scale here? I like how somebody laughed. Like, ha, no. Like, no, we're starting at like 50 and 75. There's no chance that we're using a 1-to-1 scale. So, if you have like kind of made your paper messy, you might want to get a second piece of paper for drawing your graph. But what you should at least have on your paper right now is either, like for Latanya, 50 plus 30x, or 30x plus 50. Sorry, I'm trying to wait and see if my Zoom will come back. Then 75 plus 25x for George, or 25x plus 75. As we start to draw our graph, I will tell you we're going to go to at least like 7 or 8 weeks. Now, wait a minute. We need to talk about something else first real quick, because otherwise some of you might make your graph one way and some of you might make your graph the other way. And how can we compare graphs if we don't set them up the same? We know X and Y axes, but I don't know if you guys know what they're actually called. Because, no. We have the axes are called that, but what they are, like we made that up, right? X and Y, we made that up. And Z, if we have the 3-dimensional, it'd be X, Y, Z. We have one of these is independent, and one of them is dependent. Like you are a dependent of your parents. Legally, they get to claim you on their taxes because you depend on them. Who you are is going to kind of be determined by them. You're a dependent. Sorry. Once you're 18, your parents can say bye-bye, and you can become an independent. Or you could say on their insurance for a little while, whatever. But when we think about y equals rx plus b, or mx plus b, which of those x or y, Jack, you with me? Which of those x or y do you think are dependent? Like you, right? You're dependent, which is okay. You're a kid. You're supposed to be dependent. Emery? So x is actually not dependent because x can do what it wants. My x is independent, right? She's doing her own thing. Caleb? The y is our dependent because y depends on what we put in for x. So x is our independent variable. And then the y depends on what x does. So x is our independent, y is our dependent. So when we think about this situation, we have two labels here. And not Latanya and George, those will be our lines, right? The people are going to be our lines, or our lines are going to be the people. What are our labels here? Those are the people. Oh. What are the things that they're talking about, Jack? So money, that's one label. Money. Oh. Anybody? Weeks. Do we think weeks depend on money, or money depends on time? Money depends on time. So when we make our graph, we all need to put money as our dependent, and time, which here is weeks, as our independent. Yes. It depends on which culture you learned it and whether they actually represent it with 1 or 2 lines. That was actually part of a. Have you ever watched The Amazing Race, which is where like teams race around the world? That whole 1 line versus 2 line that came up on that show because some like on your keyboard it's only shown with a single line. When people like draw it, depending on what font you click, it shows up with 2 lines versus what it's a weird thing. So here's what we need. We need to make our graph so that we can get to at least, let's say like 2 months. So 2 months is like 8 weeks-ish. If you decide to go past that, that's fine. But let's at least get our x to get to 8, maybe like 8 to 10, somewhere like whatever. And then our money, how can I figure figure out how high my money is gonna need to go, we'll maybe go to like a max of 10 weeks. Jackson?
You find the common number. Basically, you find a number that is the same for both of them.
That's our goal. Like, we're gonna end up doing it. But what I'm asking is, how do I figure out how high up my y-axis needs to go?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We basically solve for that number.
How?
I know the number. I just don't know how to explain it properly.
Oh, you want to throw it to Sam?
Sure.
I don't know. Sam's behind you.
Because the X is the weeks and 25 is the money they're getting per week, you can multiply it and then do the same for 30.
Because the X is the weeks. Let's make our life easy. Let's use 10. Even if you're gonna do 8, let's use 10 and know what our top limit is.
10's a good number.
250 times 10. 25 times 10.
250.
Plus 75.
325.
Especially when I gave you the answer. We didn't know.
300.
30 times 10.
300.
Plus 50. So the max that you might need to get to up here is 350. The max, right? All right. Go ahead and dive in. You need to draw axes. Then you need to choose a scale. If you get stuck, I'm going to help you. That's the point of me being here. If you want to watch what I'm doing, you can. I'm not going to talk for a couple minutes, but I will show what I'm doing. First things first, I'm using a ruler.
This scale
You do not want to try to make your graph small. Like, if you're trying to make 1 week be 1 box, like, guys, you have the space to go bigger than that. And like what I said, if your paper got crowded already, go get another piece. All right, if you need a reminder of how to scale graphs, please listen to me. If we're going to put weeks on the x-axis, we said we want to get to 10 weeks. Am I recording? Okay. I just needed to make sure because we got a lot of people who ate too much candy last night, I think. So if we want to get to 10 weeks, you have 2 options to do this math. You can either do boxes over weeks or weeks over boxes, but I'm going to do boxes compared to weeks. But first I need to know how many boxes I have. Now here's a little trick. This paper is 1/4 inch boxes, meaning there are 4 boxes per inch. So if I go to 5 inches, what's 5 times 4? 20. So I know this is 20 boxes. Maybe a bit more, but on your paper, it might be different. On my paper, now hold on, don't do it on your paper until you know what you're doing. So I'm going to take 20 boxes, divide it by 10 weeks, and this tells me I should do 2 boxes for every 1 week. So 2 boxes will be my 1 week. I mean, you can do just 8, but 10 is an easier number. In my mind, 10 is just an easier number. Yes. Yes, that means I'm recording. Sometimes it disappears, sometimes it doesn't. No, that's how it's supposed to be. Yeah, don't worry about the settings on my computer, bud. Just worry about, do you have down what you need to have down? It's okay. If you need to know what that means, it means it's not capturing the sounds my computer is making. Those are not being recorded. No, like my computer, if my computer dings or my computer like plays music, it's not directly capturing that. It's a setting in the software I use. Oh, Mrs. Pettigrew! Took my rulers yesterday. Jack, would you like to go ask Mrs. Pettigrew if we can have the rulers back? All right, same story. Hey, if you need help with your y-axis, same story with my y-axis. Except, here's where it's going to change. I only needed to get to 10 weeks, so I decided to do boxes per week. Up here, we said we need to get to like 300, 350. So, check it. If I want to get to 350, here's the math I'm going to do. $350 divided by however many boxes I have. Again, here's my shortcut. It's 4 boxes for every inch. 6 inches, 6 times 4, 24. I could get to 25 boxes, right? So if I get to 25, maybe that'll be a nice number. $14. So, guys, look up here. If you're struggling to do this, if I do this and I get 14, that label would be dollars per box, because this was how many boxes I had. 14 is not a nice number. If I round down, like I do $10 per box, that would make me use more boxes. I don't really have the space to use more boxes. So instead of rounding this down, I need to round it up and use less boxes. So I could round up to 15, but guys, look at the numbers we're using. I think I'd rather use 20 than 15. Because 20 can work with 30, right? Like 20 per box. If I make 20 like 1 box, okay, well then a box and a half will be 30, right? Now, okay, 75 will be kind of annoying, but I can deal with that. The 25s, that'll be like a box and a fourth, right? So like, I'm going to round this up. We do the division to figure out our scale, but that's just what I could use. I don't have to, so I'm going to round that up to 20. So $20 per box. So I don't need to label every single one. 40, 60, 80, 100, 20, 40. I want to give you some time, bless you. I want to give you some time to actually do this now that we've figured out our scales. So I'm going to put on a little background music while we're working. So that's not being recorded up into my video because it's not mine. That's how I avoid copyright infringement. Whoa, I just got Elias to say something I did was smart. There's my personal victory for the week.
I've never heard
And because I rounded up and I used a bigger scale, I got past the dollar amount that I was trying to get to. That's fine. I don't have to use the whole graph. I will walk around. If anyone has any questions, I will bring my done graph around with me from earlier. If anyone has, so I'm going to graph Latanya and George in 2 different colors. Now, the only way that gets tricky is like even colored pencils don't erase great. So I work in a regular pencil first, and then I put colors on it once I'm confident in my spots. You label our weeks, right? So you doing 1 box or 2? And be careful because your origin point, I can't quite tell where your graph ends. If we're ending down on that box, let's make sure our line is actually like on the line. A little tougher with the metal rulers. The clear rulers are easier to kind of graph with. I had 20-ish. Well, on this paper, it depends on the paper. On this paper, I had 20 boxes to work with. On the other one, I had like 25. Either way, when I divide, like here, I got 17.5. I still rounded up to 20. There, I had gotten 14. I rounded up to 20 because it's just easier. Like it'll $20 per box. But yeah, 20 boxes will work. It will be big enough. Yeah. So guys, when we go to do this on our homework, please actually try to do it on your own so you know if you can do it or not.
I actually absent mindedly did 50 instead of 100, but it still reaches 350 at like. Oh no.
So you did a scale of 10 is what you're saying. So you just need to change that to being a 10. I think that's fine. Yeah. Hey, depending on your paper, Kate just pointed out that like you could use just a scale of $10 per box, which actually feels like $10 would be even nicer. I'm going to start graphing Latanya. If you need help graphing Latanya, you can look up here. I'm going to graph Latanya. So, what I wrote down for Latanya already, right? Well, hopefully you wrote it down. If you didn't, here's your other chance. We could write Rx plus B, but we don't have to do it in that order. So I could write Latanya started at 50 and then went up, 30. My brain's getting numbers mixed around. 30 per week. So for Latanya, I'm going to start at 50, which is there. Now I'm definitely going to work in pencil now because this gets slightly annoying. I need to go up by 30, which is a box and a half, according to the scale that I made. Might be different on your paper, but I go up 30. Careful. When we go over 1, that's over 1 week, not 1 box. We go over 1 week. So I went up $30 over 1 week. I again go up $30 over 1 week, which is 2 boxes on my paper. I again, $30 1 week, $30 1 week, $30 1 week. What should my points be forming? A line. Jump in the line. Everybody on time. Jackson, why are you frustrated?
Yeah, I'm having trouble graphing the money.
Yeah, it's annoying. I'm not going to tell you it's E-word. Like, it is kind of annoying depending on what scale we have. That's why I'm going to show you a second strategy for solving these things. But we're doing this one first because why should I show you the easier version first? Then you won't care. I should show you the more annoying version first and then show you the, hey, if you want to avoid this, here's option B. Yes, that's why we still need to graph George. George of the bike store.
I watched that movie. It's
Nice. All right, Latanya. Where do I start George? 75. 40, 60, 70. That's vary between boxes. Now this is going to be a pain in the butt. How does George go up? By how many? By 20. Oh my gosh. Okay, the first one's not terrible because I get to 100. But then I need to go 25, which is a box and a fourth. So guys, what I'm doing right now, if you need to look up here and check in, I just went up 25 and over 1 week. Now to do that again, I need to go up a box and a quarter box and over 1 week. So I'm like here. My quarter, my next quarter will take me to the half, and I still need to go another box up and then over a week. I know, maybe I should have chosen a different scale that would be easier to work with. Kate. Okay, Kate is smarter than me. It's fine. She chose better than me. We can't win them all. A box and a... Yes, you're right. Maybe I should have. Do you want to restart right now? Ooh. See? Well, you could even just grab another piece of graph paper. But I think I have found my intersection. I think I found it. Jump in the line, everybody on time. Yeah, I just make up lyrics. Ask my wife. She'll hear me singing. She's like, "You know those aren't the words." And I'm like, "I don't know they're not the words."
I feel that like when I have a song I don't know the words, so I'm just trying to like think of what makes sense.
So wait, after how many weeks do they have the same amount of money?
5 and 1/3.
It's actually 5.
What?
Mm, my line doesn't look like it, but according to how my points were moving, no, you're wrong. I'm sorry.
I also did 35.
Sit down.
and it-
Sit down. Sit down. Quit rushing me because you think you're going to intimidate me into believing you.
I'm not gonna intimidate you.
Hey,
I don't want to intimidate you.
I want to show you what, in my opinion, is the easier way.
I don't know.
Put your pencil down for a second. Look up here. What is it that we're trying to find? What is that? What is that?
Where they have the same amount of money.
Where they are equal. Where who is equal?
Oh, George.
So wait, you mean we're trying to figure out when 50 plus 30x is equal to 75 plus 25x?
Yes.
So wait, you mean we're trying to figure out 50 plus 30x. I don't like red. 50 plus 30x. When that is equal to 75 plus 25x? You mean that's what we're trying to do? Don't we know how to do this?
Yeah, I think so.
Which side has the bigger x?
30.
So give that side, like leave the x's on that side. I gotta get a pen. I don't know where my pens are, but I can't write with my fingers. Do the x's first. Get rid of the smaller x. So minus 25x. So then 50 plus 5x equals 75. Yes, but what I'm teaching you is more efficient. Now what? Subtract 50. Now what?
Oh! I get it now.
Mic drop.
I
Mic drop. What?
Whoa!
That took how long? 30 seconds?
Yeah, why did you teach us that in the first place?
Because now you actually care. Wait, should I drop myself?
No.
You have a couple minutes to start the problem on your homework if you'd like. You do not have to use, thank you, you do not have to use the graph space I put on there. You can use your own graph paper if you want, but I put graph space on there so you have some available. Graph paper, yes.
I didn't
Oh,
really find
somebody, I saw a thing floating around online where it was whatever school they go to had made copies, like computer paper, copies of lined paper. Like they put like a piece of like lined paper through the copy machine and print, and they were like, "Bro, like, isn't this more expensive?" I guess it was on my page of like they did the math. There's this online page where like people are like, well, if a ream of copy paper costs this much, and like we do the math of like which one is cheaper, and this is cheaper than using computer paper. Like, I mean, but it all depends. Like, well, what sort of deal do you get on the computer paper versus what sort of deal did you like? It all comes down to like it depends. Yeah. And it depends. Do you have a closet full of graph paper that you're trying to use up? Which I do. I have stacks of graph paper.
Oh god.
Okay, there was also a really